Life after death. Eyewitness accounts. My near-death experience. The end of the dry season was approaching, and our platoon was being withdrawn. The job was simple: drive down the road, show the flag, and make sure we still had the right of way. Two armored personnel carriers, driving slowly in front of mine, whipped the powdered dirt into little clouds of dust. Lady, the platoon mascot, trudged along, tail wagging. She'd never ridden with us again since the truck carrying her had been blown up by a mine. I swapped my Panama for my helmet, put on my wire-rimmed sunglasses, and put the .50 caliber machine gun on the safety plunger as we rode out of the base camp gate and picked up speed. The lady stopped a few feet outside the gate and followed us out with a look. Our transporters soon reached a monotonous but comfortable speed of 40 miles per hour, which provided a welcome breeze. On either side of the road, mile after mile, stretched the rice fields, divided by a system of canals and dams into neat rectangles of various sizes. The stale stubble of last year's crop could not cover the land in the fields. The clay soil of the plots had loosened into chunks the size of walkway tiles, separated by inch-long cracks. Although the land was flat, the fields did not extend into the distance, but instead clipped abruptly at the edge of the ubiquitous forest. The forest consisted of densely growing lush green nipa palms, reaching 20 to 30 feet in height. There was no place in the Mekong Delta where you were not surrounded on all sides by it. Sometimes it could be 2 miles away from you, sometimes several hundred feet. It grew along the arms of the river, and they, like a root system, were everywhere. We controlled the big towns and villages, the roads, the skies, the main river routes, and the rice plots. The forest belonged to Charlie, roaring with its diesel engines and dragging behind it a huge, mile-long cloud of dust. The convoy began to approach one point where the ominous wall of jungle came close to the road on either side. Instinctively, I began to peer more closely into the edge of the forest. Suddenly, 8 feet directly beneath my lily-white asshole, a very large tank mine was remotely detonated. I immediately realized what was going on and thought to myself, "Holy crap, here we go again." I was tossed upward along with everyone and everything else. People, dust, weapons, ammunition, helmets, and boxes of soldiers' rations formed an expanding inverted cone with me in the center. On the way up, outside time slowed. The rate of rotation of the objects around me decreased rapidly, in apparent violation of the law of conservation of angular momentum. I was mesmerized by the unnaturally slowing rotation of my companions' bodies and thought, is this the end? Are we all dead? At the highest point of my trajectory, time came to a complete halt, and an inexplicable calm descended upon me. There was a state of consciousness that could be classified as normal wakefulness, just as normal wakefulness is classified as sleep. Whatever it was peaceful, omnipresent, omniscient, and included everything in the indivisible whole. The past, present and future of the entire universe was reduced to a single center on which the existence of everything in the world depends. This is that which does not change. It is the light of pure consciousness that illuminates all things. This is the ultimate meaning of the enigmatic biblical passage, "The lamp for the body is the eye." So if your eye is pure, your whole body will be light. This is the great nothing because it includes all things, and therefore is not itself a thing. So it can be the all things. Besides, I had absolutely no doubt about its authenticity. No more than a waking person would doubt, upon awakening from sleep, that the waking state is real and that the dream is only a dream. In short, God Himself took my reins in the sense that I no longer existed as a separate entity, only He existed. There was an overwhelming sense of bliss, love, empathy, and, oddly enough, a strong sense of déjà vu. There came the knowledge that miraculously the true home and the true self of all things had been revealed to me. The events of my life up to that moment appeared before me without haste or evaluation. In all the details. Not in chronological order, but somehow at once, though some events were emphasized more than others. Later, I was allowed to exist again and given the opportunity to learn about everything I ever wanted to know about. With the understanding that time was irrelevant, indeed, I had all the time in the world. I continued to focus on one aspect or another of my life and came to the conclusion that I had nothing much to be ashamed of. In fact, I had been extremely inept at using this gift, but at the time I was just a naive 22-year-old with a somewhat skewed conception of relative importance. I could see a 360-degree panorama of the road around me, the forest line on either side, and the other 3 transporters in my platoon. What had happened seemed to be completely enclosed in my head, but I wasn't sure if my head was still attached to the rest of my body, though, in those circumstances. The question didn't seem important one way or the other. In other words, I didn't particularly care if my life was going to fade away in the next few seconds. I was then quietly informed that I would survive the explosion without serious damage and even make it out of Vietnam in one piece. And then, selfishly, I shifted my attention to the current situation and, very calmly and leisurely, decided that I needed to 1. Stay awake so as not to drown in a 2-inch puddle in a rice paddy. 2. Relax my body so as to break as few bones as possible, and 3. Roll away from the transporter so it wouldn't run me over to death if it rolled over. It was only when I ran out of problems to solve that time began to rush back. The transcendental state of consciousness ended, and I returned to my normal waking state. I saw the ground from a height of 20 feet and began to fall toward it. I was left with an intense sense of awe and well-being. Ever since then, I have been more convinced than that 2 times 2 equals 4 that God exists. For me it is no longer a matter of faith, but rather of confident knowledge, since I have seen him as he is. Nevertheless, it was a pleasant surprise to find that he is loving, compassionate, and forgiving, qualities I had not properly considered until then. I will always remain grateful to him for reaching out to me and, so to speak, taking me in the palm of his hand at that moment. In fact, tears of gratitude come to my eyes even now as I write these lines 30 years later. Also, I no longer fear death because by his grace, this particular raindrop remembers the ocean from which it came. Sadly, this state can be sent by God, but not achieved by us. But take my word, it is always here and now, much closer than you think. I have never experienced anything that even remotely looked as real and complete as that state of consciousness, a pathetic attempt to describe which I have now made. Nevertheless, my memories of it were enough to sustain and comfort me in life's conflicts, especially in difficult times. I'm sorry, but I haven't noticed any paranormal, spiritistic, or supernatural powers in myself, just an unshakable confidence in the existence of something spiritual. If you ever stumble upon an ironclad method of bringing this state back to me, please let me know. May God be with you.